Afternoon. Our lecture for this afternoon would be registration of birth and death. The death certificate is needed to process legal documents for a person's death. It facilitates the selection of the underlying cause of death. So it is important to note that it is immediate cause, antecedent cause, underlying cause, and other significant conditions will be noted in part 2. So mechanism versus cause of death, it is important not to place cardiopulmonary arrest because most of us would exit with the heart stopping and the lungs stopping functioning. If it's unknown, you may write unknown and pending further studies. So cause of death. So out of all those diseases, morbid conditions that the patient has, which either resulted in or contributed to death of the person. So what is the underlying cause of death? It is the disease or injury that initiated the chain of morbid events leading directly to death. So these are the circumstances of the accident or violence that produced the fatal injury and must conform to your ICD classification. So for example, septicemia would be your immediate cause of death, causing gangrene of limb, antecedent, and underlying would be diabetes. Acute MI, if it's a heart disease, coronary artery thrombosis, and underlying would be atherosclerotic heart disease. So it is needed, the death certificate is needed for registration procedures in the local civil register. Same way with births, it's important for this legal document to be processed correctly. So the hospital or birth attendant, or if you were born in an airplane, the airplane pilot or driver, gives a birth certificate to a fetus that is 17 weeks or more and was born alive, then eventually dies. You need a birth and death certificate. So an illegitimate child should be acknowledged, and if it is not acknowledged, it should bear the name of the mother, surname alone. So this is the RA 9255. Illegitimate children could use the surname of the father. To register death, you must be the death attendant. You must note the circumstances of death, and no human body shall be buried without a death certificate within 48 hours of death. The duty of the nearest of kin to report death within 48 hours. Exception to the rules would be a plane, vehicle, airport, or vessel within the Philippines, en route to Philippines, vessel in high seas, drowned, body not recovered, and mass death. So 4 copies are submitted to the civil registry, and copies should be distributed within 5 days to the registrant, office of the civil registrar, filing, and attendant of death. So the requirements would be the 4 copies of certificate of death, affidavit which shall be executed by the person applying for out-of-town reporting, and requirements for delayed registration. Sometimes, there are things that cannot be identified, such as the sex of the deceased, estimated age, distinguishing features, condition of the body, date, place, and circumstances where the patient was found or the dead person was found is important in identifying bodies. For delayed report, aside from the 4 copies of death certificate, affidavit for delayed registration, name and circumstances of death. So you have to have authenticated copy of certificate of burial and approval for registration of the health officer. If it is for violence, you have to have your medicolegal you have to report to the PNP or the NBI or to the authorities. So this would usually be results of stab or gunshot wounds. So you have to note attendant, the judge, the mayor, and the chief of police. So requirements for death certificate. So no remains shall be buried or cremated without a birth certificate. Your attending physician, your MHO, your mayor secretary of the municipal board, your municipal councilor, signature based on affidavit, and reported to the local health officer within 48 hours. Disposal of dead persons would be waived if, for example, a communicable disease must be buried within 12 hours. So this has happened in response to the coronavirus being a highly contagious disease. So before that, there were these diseases: hepatitis B and C, rabies, group A strep, spongiform, encephalitis, HIV, meningo, hemorrhagic or yellow fever, plague, and SARS. So we request for the immediate cremation, so kin up for immediate burial and religious belief. So for the shipment of remains, we have to have the certificate of death, transfer permit, origin, and all the cities that will be passed through, and the city of destination. The dead would have to be embalmed, and if you have to ship international, rules of the National Quarantine Office would be the one to be followed. Okay, this is our short lecture on death and birth registration. Subscribe to our channel for more lectures of preventive medicine and community health. Thank you.